Agile Principle number 2. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. Imagine you are painting a house. The homeowner says they want it painted blue, so you set to work. Several hours in, they come out and they say they don't like the color and they want you to switch to red. You go buy red paint, and when you return, they've changed their mind after consulting some friends and think that green is really what they want. Things go well, and you get the house painted. They seem happy until they realize that their house is now the same color as their neighbor's, so it needs to be changed. Maybe white will work, or maybe blue wasn't so bad after all. Does that sound like a nightmare? Have you ever experienced something like that in creating software? Why in the world would Agile say to welcome changing requirements? Don't people know how massively inefficient that is? So imagine you're painting houses again. A family of 4 is very excited about the new paint job. They've been planning this out for some time. The husband, wife, and 2 children have all agreed that a red house is exactly what they want. They agree to your price, you buy gallons of their preferred paint, and start painting the house. It's a big job and will take a week. On Tuesday, late afternoon, you're about a third of the way done. As you clean the brushes for the day, the entire family admires your work, compliments the wonderful job, and especially how great the color looks. Then they all load up in the car and head out, mentioning something about a homeowners association meeting. The next day you see the family again. They don't seem quite as excited as the day before, but you don't think anything of it. You finish the job on Friday. The family agrees that the color and paint job is exactly what they asked for. As the wife hands you the check, she asks if they can get a quote for another paint job. At first you're pleased that they were happy with your work and want you to paint another property for them. But when they explain that they want you to repaint their house green, you're very confused. It turns out that on Tuesday, the Homeowners Association meeting elected a number of former firefighters to the board who have some very strong opinions about the colors of houses. More specifically, they feel that red should be reserved for fire stations, and no house should be painted in that sacred color. Once elected, they immediately passed a rule saying that any homeowner with a red house would need to pay a large fine every week. Tuesday night, the disappointed family had decided that green would be the next best thing to red and agreed to ask you to repaint the house once you were finished painting the remaining 2/3 of the house red. Why didn't you tell me once you found out? There was no need to paint the rest of the house red if that was no longer the color you needed, you asked them. The family explained that they had agreed for you to paint the house red, and that is what they had asked for when they hired you. They knew how inefficient it would be to change colors in the middle of a paint job. Why, you'd have to repaint the third of the house that you had already painted red in addition to the rest of the house. You thanked them for their consideration, giving them a small discount on the repaint job, and had to buy the green paint. While you appreciated how considerate they were of your time and efficiently, it still seemed like it would have been better to work out a new plan once things changed, instead of waiting until the entire house had been completed in the now forbidden color. Here's the second Agile principle again. Welcome changing requirements even late in development. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. Both of these painting stories illustrate how not to follow this principle. The goal isn't to just randomly make expensive changes because the customer has no idea what they want. The goal is to harness change, to embrace change, and to use it to help the customer become more competitive. In the first story, the customer just had no plan, so there was no real competitive advantage in changing. In the second story, the family had a very good plan, but when the former firefighters forbade the family's favorite color of red, that plan changed. Finishing painting the house was not being done for the customer's competitive advantage. It wasn't being done in the customer's best interest. It was being done because the family was valuing following a plan over responding to change. Better communication between the family and you as a painter would have led to better, more efficient outcomes. But how do you handle the first situation? How do you harness change for the customer's competitive advantage when the customer doesn't know what they want? In my experience, it's very common to have a customer ask for software that solves a particular business problem with only a few vague and sometimes contradictory ideas about how it might work. In the house example, maybe you can delay the color selection for the homeowners who aren't sure what they want. Perhaps the house is primed first in order to give them some time to decide on a color. Maybe you can even paint several colors that they're trying to decide between on a back wall of the house so they can get a better feel for what each would look like before you buy the paint for the entire house. When it comes to software, an Agile team should try to work with the customer to help them figure out exactly what they need in a way that provides them with a competitive advantage. Maybe that means building out a small piece of what they need to get feedback and adjust things once they have a chance to really try it out and see how it works for them. Maybe it means sitting and watching how they do their work and coming up with suggestions. Maybe it might even mean building out a rudimentary version of two different options and letting them see which will best improve their workflow. It all comes down to embracing change as something that will give them a competitive advantage. Agile Principle number 2. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage.